Good evening. Welcome. Welcome to the first edition, or first May meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council, May of 2024. Got a little audience tonight. We're glad to see some folks here. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. If you're watching at home, thanks for joining there as well. And if you pick up and watch this later on YouTube, I'm glad to see you there too. As is our custom, we'll begin this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rosa, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Barnett?
Here.
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit?
Here.
Commissioner Gilmartin?
Here.
Commissioner Glover?
Here.
Commissioner Tully?
Here.
Commissioner Davenport?
Here.
Great to see everybody tonight. Item 3 on our agenda is proclamations. We have 3 this evening. These kind of come and go in waves sometimes, but we're excited about the ones we have tonight. We will start with Historic Preservation Month. Whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for revitalizing and sustaining neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining a sense of place while enhancing livability. And whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds. Whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as a community. Whereas People Saving Places is the theme for Historic Preservation Month 2024. Whereas People Saving Places is a national high five to everyone doing the great work of saving places in ways big and small and inspiring others to do the same. Whereas Historic Preservation Month 2024 is an occasion for celebrating the historic place savers that pour their time, energy, and resources into protecting the places they care about, often without recognition. Now therefore, I, Robert T. Barnett, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim May 2024 as Historic Preservation Month in the Village of Downers Grove, and encourage residents and businesses to get engaged with your local historical society, visit and tour historic sites locally and when traveling, and help build awareness and share your love of historic places on social media using the This Place Matters hashtags. Dated this 7th day of May 2024, Downers Grove, Illinois. And I think we've got some folks from the Historic Society here. You guys want to come down and accept this proclamation? Somebody don't be camera shy. All right, we've got a couple more. Next one is Building Safety Month. Might not be quite as exciting, but it's nonetheless important. Actually, these are all, as I've mentioned before, if you've not been to our meetings, we've done proclamations. We do a few of these throughout the year, and they're opportunities for me to exercise a little bit of privilege from the center chair and try and highlight some things that I think are particularly important and lend a village name to them. So Building Safety Month is indeed very important for everybody in Downers Grove. Whereas the Village of Downers Grove is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and economic value of the homes, buildings, and infrastructure that serve our citizens both in everyday life and in times of disaster. Whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through a devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. Whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, and federal officials that are experts in the built environment to create and implement the highest quality codes to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. Whereas our nation benefits economically and technologically from using the international codes that are developed by a national voluntary consensus and standards developing organization. Our government is able to avoid the high cost and complexity of developing and maintaining these codes, which are the most widely adopted building safety and fire prevention codes in the world. Whereas these modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildfires, floods, and earthquakes. Whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials, who assure us of safe, sustainable, energy-efficient, and livable buildings that are essential to America's prosperity. Whereas Mission Impossible is the theme for Building Safety Month 2024 and encourages all Americans to raise awareness about the importance of building codes and ensuring safety in the spaces where we live, work, and learn. Whereas each year, in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider a commitment to improving building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now therefore, I, Robert T. Barnett, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2024 as Building Safety Month. Accordingly, I encourage our citizens to join with their communities in participation in Building Safety Month activities focusing on energy and innovation, building safety concerns, disaster preparedness, and water safety. Dated the 7th day of May 2024, Downers Grove, Illinois. I think we've got someone from our team here to accept this. Last but not least, Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas Mental Health Awareness Month has been observed in the United States since 1949. Whereas Mental Health Awareness Month is recognized in Downers Grove to enhance local awareness of mental health issues, start discussions, and highlight the many resources available in our community. Whereas every day millions of people face stigma related to mental health and may feel isolated and alone. Whereas 2 of every 5 people report symptoms of anxiety or depression, and even more care for someone who is experiencing such symptoms. Whereas creating a community where everyone feels comfortable reaching out for the support they deserve is crucial to ending the stigma around mental health. Whereas promoting mental health and wellness leads to higher overall productivity, better educational outcomes, lower crime rates, stronger economies, and an improved quality of life. Whereas the Village of Downers Grove, its Village Council, boards and commissions wish to fulfill their responsibility in promoting mental wellness. Whereas assistance is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week through the Suicide and Crisis Hotline at 988 and DuPage Crisis Services at 630-627-1700. Now therefore, I, Robert T. Barnett, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim May 2024 as Mental Health Awareness Month in the Village of Downers Grove to enhance community awareness of mental health and let all residents know mental health matters and that you matter here in Downers Grove. Dated the 7th day of May, 2024, Downers Grove, Illinois. I think we've got some folks from Grit 2 here to help us with this. Come on down.
Hi, thank you. My name is Ann Cummins, and I'm representing Grit 2, which is Growing Resiliency in Teens Together, along with Sandra McDonald, who's here with Navigate Adolescence. We're 2 local nonprofits that are dedicated to promoting mental health resources to adolescents, teen, and families. And as Mayor Barnett said, there's a lot of great activities that are going on this month. We have green ribbon displays and signs that our downtown businesses are displaying. And you guys each have a ribbon you can put on your tree if you would like outside of your home. And we're also having Wear Green for Mental Health Days at District 58 schools, and there's a Let's Start Shocking student art installation May 15th at both DGN and DGS, as well as 2 events on Saturday, May 18th, a mental health provider fair across from the Downers Grove Market on the Cadence Kitchen patio with more than 20 local mental health providers, as well as free yoga at Fishel Park starting at 9 a.m. So we hope everyone can come out on the 18th. And we'd just like to thank you all for your support. Our kids are dealing with a lot, and as we all are, and mental health continues to be something that needs our attention. And we have a special guest with us, Valeria Gonzalez, who is with our Teen Advisory Board member, and she wanted to say a few remarks.
Hi, everyone. Teen mental health is an important issue for me, as mental health is universal and affects everyone. I've dealt with my own mental health from a young age and believe it's important to address from the start. I am a junior at Downers Grove North and can say District 99 has worked with helping me along my own mental wellness journey as best as they can. It means a lot to be able to advocate for teens and spread the words, we are not alone. We are all resilient in our own ways. Everyone is worthy of love and kindness. I'm very grateful to be a part of something as great as the Teen Advisory Board for this reason. The Teen Advisory Board has helped me and many others work with the community in ways little me would have dreamed of. This change is good, and I want to help spread awareness to depression and anxiety, machismo culture, abuse, and all of the above for mental health triggers and categories. I hope to see the Teen Advisory Board grow as it has had a significant impact on my own wellness journey. I can only wish the same for everyone else on board. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Appreciate that. There's a lot of good work being done all throughout the community, and we get to highlight it occasionally here, but not often enough. So one thing I just encourage everyone is go looking for it. There are a lot of organizations, whether it's historical or it's teen mental health or it's adult mental health. There are organizations all over our community working to feed people and house people and preserve places and spaces, and it's a great community. You need to go looking for it. Thank you guys for being here again tonight. Item 4 on our agenda is minutes of previous council meetings. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move that the council adopt the April 16th, 2024 minutes as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions from the council? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. We are on to the public comments portion of our meeting. For those that have been watching in the past, this is the portion of the meeting where we take public comments on items which are not on tonight's agenda. Items that are on tonight's agenda will have public comment opportunities as we get to those through the agenda. So if you have some comments for us this evening on things not on tonight's agenda, please come on down to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Diane Flynn, and I serve as the HOA Board President at Acadiana Green, Building 2, just down the road, 930 Curtis Street. I'm here tonight, kind of unfortunately, to inform you of a concern regarding the mulch that was set outside of the building, particularly the bed that sits on Curtis Street in front of the Edward Jones retail space. The mulch in this bed has been verified to contain oriental roaches. Let me give you some background and the reason I'm here tonight. After the mulch was put down by the village on or about April 22nd, Joe Kalinsky, the owner of Edward Jones, and the residents of our building observed roach activity. Our building never had roach activity before. In response to this problem, I promptly emailed Mike Baker, the village manager, on April 23rd, and Mike forwarded the email to Mr. David Moody, the Public Works Director, and Ms. Kirsten Vonderheide, the Downers Grove Village Forester. Mr. Moody responded back pretty quickly to me and said, because no other businesses were complaining, he didn't believe it was a problem. However, the seriousness of this issue became very apparent when on April 29th, Mr. Kalinsky, the owner of the Edward Jones, provided a video evidence of these little buggers emerging from the mulch to Ms. Vonderheide, prompting the village to engage Orkin Pest Control for investigation. Mr. Fessler from Orkin came out the same day and confirmed the presence of roaches in the mulch and provided a proposal to the village to treat the mulch. I've confirmed with Mr. Fessler from Orkin that the proposal was not signed. Mr. Fessler also informed me that the roaches really love mulch, that they feed off of it and they come out when it rains. And unfortunately, we've had quite a bit of rain in the last couple of weeks. My true reason for being here tonight is this. I have repeatedly emailed Mr. Moody, Ms. Vonderheide, and Mr. Baker without response. Specifically April 30th, May 2nd, and May 6th, and even put a voicemail into Mr. Moody. Meanwhile, we continue to encounter roaches in our building, and Mr. Kalinsky at Edward Jones has pretty much shut down his office and contends with these roaches on a daily basis. The lack of response from our village directors is very disappointing. I'm requesting the village managers take immediate action to address this issue. It's imperative that at least this mulch bed be treated promptly to eradicate this infestation, as our building's ability to mitigate is contingent upon eliminating the source. Also, I would ask the village to investigate who provided this mulch and prevent it from happening again. I trust that you'll give this matter urgent attention, as it warrants a decisive action to solve this problem. I plan to continue to follow up with the village board or the village directors. Email them, I'll go to their office, whatever it takes just to get some action. Thank you for your prompt attention, and thank you for hearing me out tonight.
My name is Robin Tryloff, and first I want to thank the mayor for the proclamations he made today. And I want to add that May is Jewish American Heritage Month, during which we pay tribute to the generations of Jewish Americans who have helped form the fabric of American history, culture, and society. Today, President Biden spoke at the National Holocaust Memorial's Days of Remembrance ceremony, honoring the memories of the Holocaust victims, the courage of the survivors, and the heroism of those who stood up to the Nazis. He said, quote, "During these days of remembrance, we mourn the 6 million Jews who were systematically targeted and murdered in the Holocaust, one of the darkest chapters in human history." Close quote. Nazis also targeted Roma, Sinti, Slavs, people with disabilities, LGBTQI+ people, racial minorities, and political dissidents who were killed or endured abuse by the Nazis and their collaborators. He went on to state that hate speech has absolutely no place on college campuses or anywhere else in our country, and that as Americans, we cannot stay silent. An important reminder for all of us that the fight against bigotry, racism, and prejudice continues. In Downers Grove, the inclusive community we strive for must do everything it can to respect all its citizens, whatever their lived experience and personal identity, and give them full access to resources and promote equal treatment and opportunity. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Barnett, commissioners, village staff. Thank you very much for recognizing mental health. Having worked in mental health as program director for about 40 years, it's really neat to have the profession and the services that we provide recognized. So thank you for that. I'd also like to thank the council for their vote on April the 16th in behalf of the library board. I wish to thank the mayor and all the commissioners for their thoughtful approach to this vote. Even though the council was split, I view this as healthy for our democratic process. I wish to direct my comments to this vote, to the library, and to our community. During the past 1.5 years, many of the institutions in our society have come under attack. These attacks have focused on non-white persons and cultures, religious affiliations, women's rights, LGBT rights, and others. Things that were taught in schools historically and our past have been under attack by attempting to remove books or to change history. We have witnessed these attacks in our community. Even our library board does not feel safe meeting in the library. Also, many of the churches that are non-Christian in the community also do not feel safe and frequently have to have a safety officer during their services. As a result, many of our traditional organizations have been on the defensive. With the library board meeting on March 20th, 24, and the village council meeting on April the 16th, we are now in a position to take a more proactive stance. I would like to take this opportunity to define some of the issues which need to be addressed. And this comes from having spoken to a number of individuals during the past 1.5 years. We, as a community, need to make more of a public statement as to what our village and community stands for. We need to work on increasing the recognition of the diversity in our village. We need to work harder to make the village more accepting of persons and religions that are non-white and non-European. During the past 1.5 years, I don't believe that I have seen a non-white person attend your village council meetings. This would include acknowledging our past and making a conscientious effort to address these issues. We should work hard to increase non-white and women participation in all of our institutions and to make our community welcoming. We also need to develop a community-wide response to organizations under attack in our community and state that this is not tolerated. I have witnessed that in the library over the past 1.5 years, and that's basically what got me involved in a lot of the issues that I'm currently addressing tonight. The library and its board now has the opportunity to clearly state what it represents and what its values are. The library board should work with the village council to make a new member of the board represent the values of the library and the community. The library and other organizations have come under attack during this time for patrons who are homeless and may present an array of social issues. A big deficit is that services to these individuals are centralized in Wheaton, which is not accessible to many of our residents. DuPage Health already has a program in Westmont that delivers limited services. I would recommend that we, as a village, as well as surrounding communities, participate in a needs assessment regarding the services needed and call for an expansion of the services provided out of Westmont, as this would be more readily accessible to our residents and our community. This would include support groups, drop-in programs, intervention programs for youth in schools in our community, and the like. Having had extensive experience with community services, I would be willing to assist in this endeavor. Our community should not have a fear that books on the shelves or areas taught in our schools come under attack. It is to be noted that these attacks are only recent. In an offensive mode, we should consider what programs need to be further developed to accurately reflect history as well as events. We need to include programs focusing on increased diversity. We need to encourage religious organizations in the proximity of the community to increase programs focusing in on understanding of their faiths. We have multiple large congregations and mosques and Hindu temples, Buddhist temples, but yet we don't reach out to them. And very few of us understand their religions, but yet they are a part of our community. If we are to increase that small percentage of non-white people in Downers Grove, we need to reach out to them as opposed to having them reach out to us. Lastly, we need to focus on increased community participation so that a minority does not speak for the community as a whole. Thank you for your time, and if I can be of assistance, please let me know. Thank you.
Janet Winningham. I'm here to talk about a topic I have mentioned before, the Washington Street Railroad crossing. Yesterday morning when I was commuting to downtown Chicago, coming across the tracks, the car in front of me stopped right across the tracks before the crosswalk, not because there was a passenger there or a pedestrian there, but they stopped to drop off a passenger to go onto the platform for the train. Apparently this crosswalk invites the idea that it's a drop-off location, because that never happened in 20 years. I never saw it in 20 years of commuting before the crosswalk was changed. It is important that traffic flow smoothly across tracks, and it doesn't now. It didn't before very well, but now it's worse. There was a chance to fix this and make the street straight. You didn't do it for other priorities. And there needs to be some management of this location and train crossing, because it is an accident waiting to happen. Just ask anybody who uses it and doesn't have a stake in the vote, because it is not well designed, and it's a disservice to the community of Washington Park to have it the way it is, and the rest of the folks who use that crossing to get into downtown. So I'm going to encourage you to figure out something, even if it's a crossing guard during rush hour or at particular times of day or something, to make that crossing safe. Because in my opinion, it sure isn't now. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Clorna Greco, and I'm here to talk about the meeting I attended for Guiding Downers Grove. As a business owner, I've been in town for 38 years, and I've seen the town grow, which is wonderful. But when they proposed to take all these parking spaces away to have outdoor dining permanently, when we're not going to be able to use it for the majority of the year, I think you're doing a disservice to the community. We have a parking issue. When I attended the meeting, they said that they will be discussing that. I asked, why didn't they put parking underneath the new city hall? They said they thought about it, but they decided against it. I said, why didn't they build a parking garage here? They said they thought about it, but they voted against it. Where are all these people? We already have a parking issue. Where are they supposed to park when you take 20 or 30 parking spots away on Main Street in Curtis? We have an issue when Amazon and all the other deliveries come, they block the street, the people can't get through. We have a problem when the garbage gets picked up. because they have to bring the containers out because some of these trucks can't get into the alleyway. We have a problem when they get their beers delivered, when they get their food deliveries. You have to take a pause and not be trying to get these parking spots permanently deleted by next summer. We all know that it's going to take a couple years to build a parking garage, but where are we going to build it? The Masons aren't going to give us the only grass area we have in the downtown area. The library, are they going to let us build a parking garage there? We have to do something to get additional parking here for these small businesses. It's great that we have all this outdoor dining, but we're not looking at the ocean. We're not in California, we're not in Florida, we're not in Mexico, we're not in Hawaii. We have spring, summer, winter, and fall. It's been raining. How many times do the people that are sitting outside have to run inside the restaurant? And they eat inside the restaurant, guess why? Because they're not full. It would be different if they were at capacity and there was nothing that they could do, that they had to put them outside. Yes, it's nice in the summertime to sit outside, but if you're not going to address the parking, you're going to do a disservice to Downers Grove. In the 38 years that I've been here, we've seen it grow, but we were not built for, we had little dress shops where we have 2 or 3 people. We had a hardware store. We had all this. We didn't have restaurants where they have 20 on the low end, 30 people between the bartenders and the servers and the runners and the cooks and the managers and the wait staff. All those people, where are they parking? And now the restaurants want to take the parking away so they could have more outdoor dining? It just doesn't seem fair to all the other businesses in Downers Grove that helped build the Downers Grove area for the 38 years that I've been working here. And I'll be back up here when we talk about Pierce Tavern. Thank you.
Hi. Hi, my name is James Kelly. I'm here tonight to actually, on a positive note, I just signed a 5-year lease on a building that I'm extremely happy with. I haven't moved into it yet, but in celebrating it, I also got involved with one of the businesses in Downers Grove, Giordano's, and the buzz is Loving Mom. I placed a big letter that says Loving Mom in front of there, and me and the owner decided we should do something more than just say it. We should actually do it. So tomorrow between 2 and 4, any mother that wants a bichetta, half order, absolutely free, compliments of me. This is my uniform. I'm celebrating. I wear it less now. Got rid of my green tie, so I got a little bow tie. But bichetta is fantastic. And it's absolutely free, no purchase necessary. It's tomorrow only from 2 to 4. Hope somebody comes and enjoys it. You know, I do appreciate moms out there. And I'll tell you what, they deserve a break every day, not just Mother's Day. So that's what me and the owner decided to do. Have a good evening. Bye.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is Selma Moberg. I'm here to speak tonight about a post that I put out on Nextdoor, if anybody reads Nextdoor. I find it kind of ironic that it's Historical Preservation Month, and I'm up here to talk about the destruction of preservation at 902 Maple. So I posted a comment on Nextdoor. I'll try to be brief about this post, but I wanted to talk about the never-ending congestion and the building in regards to an accident that almost happened at Maple and Main last week. And I also want to, before I forget, I want to thank these ladies for speaking about the congestion. Like, I can't even get through town because people are eating in the streets. I don't know how they do it because they have to smell all the fumes, but regardless, I almost got into an accident at Maple and Main. Somebody blew the arrow. The arrow was gone. I was in the middle of the intersection, and I almost had head-on collision. So I decided to get on and post about it. And I wanted to talk to specifically, well, you got to direct your, well, you don't have to, but I did direct my comments to Bob Barnett about talking about the congestion. And I said, tell us about the apartment condos taking the place of Village Hall. How do you propose they squeeze out of there? Only one road, Curtis to Washington, Belden, and Mackey. What are you going to do? Build a tunnel under your house, Mayor, to manage the congestion? If we thought Maple and Washington was already dangerous with 8,000 cars per day and accidents in the last year, and I want to make a comment about the gal who mentioned Washington to Prairie. In the last year alone, there have been 10 accidents from Washington and Maple to Prairie North. So it is horrible. I drive that area every single day, multiple times a day. It is horrific, and I just found out this morning that there were 10 accidents within this last year. So let me share. I think a lot of people don't understand what's going on in town, mainly for lack of communication. I said, let me share, because I'm betting most citizens don't know, of course, until they get their letter bomb, as we call it. So to come, 5330 Main, 4915 Main, and then there's the Fairview Corridor. Keep your eye on the zoning, people, because it's not final, but you need to watch and prepare yourselves. You can expect no less than the biggest thing you can imagine in the transitional areas. The Village Council can push back to these developers, such as Aaron Holding, that dropped somewhere around $1 million in cash as the grapevine has it for 902 Maple. Who has that kind of cash? Your new neighbors at 902, brothers Vitas, and I'm going to probably destroy their names, Vitas and Gitas Aranelskis. We do not want you here. We don't need you destroying a home with historical significance. We don't need you building a house-sized units with 10 parking spots. The village is allowing you to destroy the charm of what was a quaint, beautiful town. The village rolls over like dogs waiting to get their stomachs scratched with cash. They let these builders do whatever they want as long as they meet their little list of criteria. Everyone is so beaten down, and thus the "it's a done deal" comment is because everybody is so beaten down so badly they don't want to fight anymore. And you wonder why? As exorbitant tax-paying citizens as we are, our opinions are relevant and we care about our community. Change is inevitable. However, Downers Grove's got to the point that people are beyond angry. You don't get that, do you? You say you listen and then you have coffees on Saturday once a month, but that's the type of communication that's required, especially for an intrusive build like 902, and Dash, Marquis, Maple and Main, and soon to come, all of the others. Al Damascus, lawyer to the brothers, Vitas and Gitas, claimed they spoke to the community, 902 community. That is an outright lie. They spoke to no one around 902. So back to the dangerous intersections. I asked people to share their near misses, as I was involved in one last week. But as next door usually goes, it goes off the rails and everybody goes in a different direction. But I wanted to read a few posts, and I will try to be brief about...
Selma, you're down to about a minute, so I might want to
Okay,
think about
well,
how
this
many you read.
deserves more than 5 minutes.
That-
So I'm going to finish.
That's...
No, I'm going to finish. I
that's
pay a
the
lot
rule.
of taxes
Oh, for
to
crying
live
out
here.
loud, Selma.
Nope, I'm going to finish. Okay,
How
well,
long are you gonna
I'll
take?
get on to this. Who makes this preview and approval criteria? Who writes that? We know who fills out the answers, but I'm going to specifically get to number 3 right here at the bottom. Question number 3, preview and approval criteria, special use criteria. The questions are answered by the developers. And the question is that the proposed use will not, in the particular case, be detrimental to the health, safety, or general welfare of persons residing or working in the vicinity, to be injurious to property values or improvements in the vicinity. Who wrote that? Well, the answer comes out to be the proposed 5 units building will not have a negative impact on the health, safety, or general welfare of the general vicinity. The developments will contribute to the general welfare of the community by demolishing an existing and deteriorating house and garage and provide new modern upscale housing units to provide housing options for residents who desire to work or enjoy the amenities of the downtown area, therefore having a huge probability of improving the property via the vicinity. I think my 3-year-old granddaughter could have come up with a better answer.
Please wrap it up.
Somebody said in my post, you're missing one point related to what can and should be built. There are downtown design guidelines, and this is what I want to specifically, excuse me, get to. There's specific guidelines that this mayor signed off on that are not being followed in the transitional and downtown zoning district that state that buildings adjacent to the existing residential areas should exhibit the characteristics of the adjacent existing neighborhood. 902 Maple does not follow those guidelines, neither did the Dash. So no, they are not following the rules or rules as you suggest. The lack of follow-through within the village is a source of frustration. They say they will follow the rules, and they have public meetings for input. The village creates guidelines to shut citizens up, and now this is not me saying this.
Are you close?
I'm close.
Are you going to
I
read
am
all of
close,
next
and I
door?
will finish up.
Please don't read all of next door to us.
I'm not going to, but there's a
That's
whole lot
thankful.
more, and I know you read it. So he goes on to talk about the guidelines to shut the citizens up, then do not follow through. So yes, the citizens have lost faith and trust in the village council and village staff. It's totally useless. Staff will not listen or even meet with residents, but will spend hours defending a developer that does not meet the design guidelines. So if someone wants to build a house next to your house and they were commenting on it, would it be okay if they ignored the guidelines? Thank you.
Is anybody else?
Good evening. I'm Ian Ogden, 4810 Saratoga. So, yeah, this month is Historic Preservation Month. And I think, frankly, we need to do a better job at this. I think, really, in the last 20 years, we've seen Block 117 and several other major buildings, while we've also watched historic sites, historic homes, historic buildings of any sort demolished for that purpose. And I think that in the spirit of this month, we need to change that because nobody likes it. Nobody wants it. Nobody's going to stand for it. Everyone's tired of fighting for it because they can't win. They feel like the village that's supposed to be their representatives is not listening to what they say or what they want and only making excuses for why we should allow this to happen. There's no excuses. I mean, honestly, it's more of we need to take back the village. We all, as citizens, need to have a say in the matter. And that's so, in the spirit of this month, I think we should all do that then. Thank you.
Others? Okay, we will continue then. Item 6 is our consent agenda. Is there a motion concerning the consent agenda?
Mayor, I move that the council adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 7 is our active agenda. This is the portion of the meeting where we take up subjects typically for at least a second time, sometimes multiple times, but these are items on which we plan to take action this evening. Is there a motion concerning the village budget?
Mayor, I move that the council adopt an ordinance providing for an amendment to ordinance number 5952 and the Village of Downers Grove budget for the fiscal year 2023 as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions from the audience on this item? Comments or questions from the council? All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Martin.
I'm going to
Please,
channel
go
Mayor
ahead.
Barnett for a moment here and say it may seem like we talked about this a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but we have discussed this before, so you're probably not going to hear any discussion tonight because we did discuss this. It's pretty straightforward, and that's why you're not going to hear a lot of comment about it now as opposed to what you'll hear during first reading. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Martin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 2 passes unanimously. Item 8 on the agenda is our first reading. We have a little bit of a list tonight. First reading items are items on which we do not plan to take action tonight. These are items which we will begin discussing or be continuing to discuss, but these are items we do not plan to take formal action this evening. With that, I'll turn it over to Village Manager Fieldman.
Thank you, Mayor Burnett. There are 8 items on tonight's first reading agenda, really 4 topics for discussion. The first item is an ordinance authorizing the special use for the property at 5133 Main Street, reestablishing some multifamily residential units. Here to provide some background information on this petition is our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich.
Thank you, Manager Fieldman. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. As Manager Fieldman noted, it's a special use request to reestablish a multifamily use and a parking variation at 5133 Main Street. The property is located right in the heart smack dab of the middle of the downtown, to the northeast corner of Main and Curtis Streets. And this is the building we're talking about right there. So there was multifamily previously that existed in the second floor of this building. There were 8 units. The zoning ordinance allows that, however, that if the use has been discontinued for more than 6 months of time, a new special use is required to reestablish the use. So that's why we're here tonight in front of you because of a lapse in the special use. The petitioner is proposing to renovate the second story here. Previously there were 8 residential units, and the new use would have 7 residential units. Historically, the apartments have not provided parking on site. As you're all aware, this building is built pretty much property line to property line with a little alley on the east side, so there's no parking available on site. The petitioner is requesting a variation to allow this condition to continue. Parking passes are available for these residents in our parking garage should they choose to apply for those. With regard to the comp plan, this project is obviously in the downtown, pedestrian-oriented, walkable, provides a sense of enclosure, quality architecture, and we're calling for residential uses on the upper floors, which is located at this location as well. The Plan Commission met at their April 1st meeting and found that the special use standards and the variation standards were met, and they recommended unanimously approval of the request. Staff is happy to answer any questions that the Mayor and Council might have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Stan. Any comments or questions from the audience on this item?
Do I have to come up front, or can I
Yep,
just...
now please come down to the podium. The trick behind the podium, guys, is that the people watching on TV, either now or later, will actually be able to hear what's being said.
Okay, as I said before, it's a restaurant. It's taken up how many parking spaces already, not including their customers. And now they want to have a special use to forego the 10 parking spots they need to provide. I think maybe they should turn it into a rooftop like downtown Naperville does. This way they don't have to put the people on the sidewalk, and we don't have to lose all of our parking spots. This is ridiculous. They're going to be parking in the parking garage on the first floor, which they shouldn't. If they were allowed to park on the street between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., their cars would be subject to rain, hail, snow, ice, the sun, and they get to park on the first floor, and our customers have to go park on the 3rd or 4th floor and pay $3 for all-day parking when they're coming in for 30 minutes, a half hour, 45. This is ridiculous. Why should they be allowed that? Once again, we need to resolve the parking issue in downtown. No one is going to get all dressed up and then walk or ride their bike to get their hair done. My client said she'd tell her husband to drop her off and then he could go walk from home. This is ridiculous. Let's work on getting a parking fixture or something for parking and not continue doing this. How many parking spots that one building want to take away from Downers Grove?
I'll be echoing that. I think that the variation and variance should not be granted. It doesn't matter that it used to be residential and now and never had parking. We didn't have outdoor dining before. So on top of the 10 spaces that are being requested to be excused. There are 20 spaces or so taken up by outdoor parking for outdoor dining now, and that is intended to be permanent in the near future. And the parking garage can only absorb so much parking. Every building that's been put up in the last recent past is underparked. It's a fact. It doesn't matter what your guidelines are. People in the suburbs have cars. And there was a posting on Nextdoor this week about a person that was looking for parking for one of the buildings across from the Moose. There's a 2-year waiting list, and apparently it's the senior housing. Apparently the residents aren't dying fast enough to turn over the parking. They can't get it. There's not enough parking for the residential uses that are in this that are being proposed. It is again, a disservice to those of us who drive downtown and want to find a place to park. In the summer, construction workers park in the garage. The existing buildings, overflow parking, park in the garage. The Lot 2, who knows when that's developed, where that's going to be a parking for that. And by the way, in connection with the crossing, the railroad crossing issues with the crosswalk are only going to get worse when the Lot 2 residents are occupying that building. The traffic will be worse. And it isn't fair to those of us who don't ride our bikes, don't live downtown, and still want to come downtown and have the ability to take advantage of the amenities here, the library, the restaurants, and other businesses, to discourage and prevent us from having a place to park. And that one garage is available, can service only so much. The write-up that talked about the plan focusing parking to go into the garages, there was a plural there, and I think I've missed one if there's another garage somewhere else. And where will you, and Clorna said, where will you put it? The parking issue needs to be front and center as part of this planning process, because it's never going to get the right attention if it's not. Thank you.
Others on this item? Okay, council comments or questions? Martin?
Go ahead, Karen.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I actually had a couple of questions for Stan. I apologize for not asking earlier. What's the approximate age of the building? I should have asked the Historic Society people in there.
Yeah. I don't know the approximate age, but I'm guessing it's well over 70 years, I would guess.
Right, and my guess it's also probably one of those buildings of a historic nature that we appreciate in our downtown. That's more of a rhetorical statement than a question. I know it's not landmark though, but stay tuned. How long was the special use in place before it expired?
So with special uses, the use was previously permitted, so the special use was a sort of, when we changed ordinances and regulations about multifamily on the second floor, it became a special use, so it was that way for many, many years with residential above on the second floor there.
Likely the 2005 downtown rezoning actions, likely.
And probably in place long before that.
Most likely, yes.
Right, so this has been like this for probably over 20 years.
Most likely, yes.
Okay. That's what I figured, but I just wanted that information. So first of all, I'm going to get really focused on this because this is not about parking the downtown. This is not about parking the community. This is a request from the specific property owner for a special use with respect to their unit. It's not about the restaurants. It's not about downtown. All those comments are legitimate topics of discussion at another point in time, but not this. This has been like this for over 25 years, and frankly, the building was built at a time and in a fashion where you cannot provide the parking that we would now require because it's a historic building. I'm sure our friends with the Downers Grove Historical Society will recognize that sometimes buildings were built over 70, 100 years ago have unique challenges, and that's really what this situation is to me. It's a unique, very unique situation. I can't think of many other buildings, there's probably a few, but many others that would fall into the same category. But unlike a lot of variances, we're talking about both the special use and the standards for special use. We're also talking about the standards for variation, so apologize if I kind of commingle this a little bit. The special use criteria is pretty simple because there's 3 points here. One, that it's expressly authorized as a special use in the district in which it's to be located. Of course, I'm referring to 2812-050H. Thank you for reminding me, Commissioner. That's clearly satisfied. Second is that the proposed use is necessary or desirable to provide a service or facility in the interest of public convenience and contribute to the general welfare of the community or the neighborhood of the community. For decades, this village council and prior village council have been focused on increasing density in the downtown, walkable commuting opportunities that support a very vibrant downtown, so it's certainly consistent with that. That's reflected in a number of village council policies and plans over the years. Third, the proposed use will not, in the particular case, be detrimental to the health, safety, or general welfare of persons residing or working in the vicinity or be injurious to property values or improvements in the vicinity. Nothing's changing. It's been like this for over 20 years, probably longer, so no one can argue that it's going to cause any harm. In fact, if I understand this correctly, they're going from 8 units down to 7 units. So if anything, it's less than it's been for the last around 5. Thank you, Commissioner. So it's if anything, it's actually less intrusive than it has been for decades, probably before many people have even lived in Downers Grove. But the most important issue here is that to comply with this, and this is what really is important for the variation standards under Section 2812-090G, is this isn't a situation where somebody's coming in, greenfield, and building a new building and saying, oh, gee, I know you require us to put in 10 parking units, but I don't want to do that, or it's too costly for me to do that. Please let me slide. That's not the situation. I don't know how you would do it here other than demolishing the building or providing the parking off-site, which is going to take parking away from the very places that people just said they wanted to keep it. So this is the hardship that is very unique to this particular building. It's very unique to this particular situation. And it's not one that was created by the property owner. It was probably created by the times in which the building was built, which none of us today can do anything about. So there's a lot of different factors that we're supposed to take into account for variation standards. I won't bore everyone by going through all of them, but some of them overlap with what I just said in terms of not being injurious to the neighborhood, not adding any additional stress. In fact, it's reducing the stress because previously it supported 7 residential units. Now it's 5, so it's actually decreasing the parking requirements, not increasing it. The real issue here is it's not changing anything that has been in place for probably over 25 years. And the reality is, other than generally providing more parking in the downtown, which is a separate legitimate topic of conversation, there is probably one of the most practical hardships you can imagine. You can't provide it in this building. It's just the way it was built at the time. The only other way to do it would be to demolish the building or provide it off-site, which is not a solution. So this unique situation, given that it is an existing property, it was a special use that was in place for many, many years, that lapsed, but now is asking to come back to us, but in a less intense version than it was before. I'm obviously going to consider other things between now and when we vote on this, but it strikes me as this is a very unique situation that justifies both the approval of the special use as well as the variation that's been requested for the parking requirement. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Greg?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to save everybody some time. I agree with everything Commissioner Tully just said. I think the standards are met for both the special use and the variation. But since parking downtown has come up several times tonight, I thought I'd dig back out a document from a few years ago. Back in 2019, we actually did a downtown parking study. As we've obviously heard quite a bit about, hey, parking downtown. And it turns out there's some pretty interesting findings, and I'm looking at an agenda from December 17th, 2019. Parking analysis key findings. 25% of parking spaces were available during peak hour demand between noon and 1 p.m. The amount of available spaces increased to 46% at 4 p.m. On-street parking occupancy increased since 2011 by 4.9%, and off-street parking decreased by 6.5%. And as you scroll down, the analysis demonstrates that even during peak demand, there are reasonably accessible spaces available to most users of the system. Scrolling a little bit further. Key recommendations. Number 1, do not pursue additional structured parking at this time. Now, a lot can change in 5 years, but in 5 years, we've had COVID and a lot fewer people going downtown via the Metro. And we have quite a lot of parking in our downtown that is, at least on some level, dedicated to Metro commuters. And as somebody who's on the train most days, I can tell you that there's not as many people commuting downtown 5 days a week as there used to be. All this is to say that, do we have a parking problem downtown? Sometimes we do. But most often, it's an I can't park exactly where I want kind of problem. And people will walk much further without complaint at Oak Brook Mall, at Yorktown Mall, in other places, and wouldn't really think about it in walking there. But if they've got to walk the same kind of distance in our downtown, it generates a complaint. I'm of the mind that I'm not even going to most of the time look for a parking spot on the street downtown. I'm going straight to the parking deck. I think there's a fair number of people who do similar things. But if we're always going to expect to park exactly where we want to, we're probably going to complain. But in a downtown that is more dense and is intentionally so, in order to enhance the services and the businesses that are available to our residents, we're going to have a bit more, a bit higher population downtown. If you ask me, that's good for our businesses, whether they're restaurants or whether they're other retail establishments. But I apologize for the detour down the parking history, but suffice to say, I'm comfortable with the parking downtown as it currently exists, because there's enough opportunity if you hunt for it. And I'm in favor of the presented variance and special use. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Leslie?
Sure. I agree with most of what Commissioners Tully and Jose said. I would say, though, that I think there is a little bit of nuance, and we do have to consider the context in which we exist with some of these standards as well. So I do think that, thinking about parking downtown is still relevant in these discussions. Otherwise, I kind of feel like we would just have AI making these decisions for us and not 7 humans up here. Please, AI, don't take my job. No,
I'll take that as a compliment.
You should. But I am in agreement. My mind also went back to that 2019 parking study, and so it did generate a few questions now that we're having some of this conversation here, though. When do we expect the existing conditions report for some of the things that we're doing downtown for the comprehensive plan, and how far into parking do we think that those are going to get?
The existing conditions report, I think, will be delivered to the village in end of May, allowing us for discussions to begin probably in late June and continue on through July. The level of detail as far as parking counts, et cetera, we'll double check and get some information back to the council.
And then, for the next time we discuss if there's any information about kind of parking shifts because of COVID, because obviously things are not the same as they were in 2019. We did add in outdoor dining, but we do also know that Metro ridership has gone down. I'm also one of those. I'm there 3 days a week, but you can absolutely see the differences in the parking. There's a lot fewer people going downtown. It feels very crowded on the trains, but it's just because of the changed schedules and the number of cars and the staff that they have to man said cars. So I know that does play a role in it. I also was wondering if we had any idea, and I don't know how you would figure this out, what the parking needs were when this was residential, so when there were people existing in there, if we have any records on how many required permits. Do we have a general idea of folks who kind of live in some of these areas that don't have provided parking? Does it tend to do people self-select essentially that don't have cars that go to these places or not? I don't know if we have any idea about that, but.
We can research that information. If we have it, we'll get it back to the council.
Great. And I think that was all I had. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, so just a couple observations and a question. So not to pile on, I agree with what's been said. But one, it seems to me that if indeed it's true that we are in need of more parking, that's a pretty good problem to have, right, as opposed to the alternative. I think it speaks to a robust community and business and residential areas. And two, if this isn't going to be residential on the second floor, then what? Right? It's hard to imagine a less intensive daytime parking use than residential on this floor. So it's one thing to think about what this is going to do, but then if you don't do that, then what? Offices, if we had more dining area up there that just increased capacity, you know, during the day, evenings, a lot more parking demand. I think it's reasonable to expect the owner of the building be able to use that space for something, right? And so I think this is a good use for this and certainly meets all the criteria for the special use and the variance. And then lastly, a question. I heard mentioned that the residents get options for first floor parking garage parking. Is that true?
I believe the Lot R permit does allow you to park on certain sections of the first floor of the parking garage.
So I guess that's something I'd be interested in learning more about the criteria for that and why it's that way. And so thank you. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Bruce?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate all the comments regarding the parking. I appreciate the comments that came from the public on that. I feel like that's a topic we're going to have to face more as we talk about comprehensive plan and the downtown landscape or hardscape. I do want to get back to sort of the special use request at hand, and I do have a question. What was it that, if the special use had been in place for 20-some plus years, what was it that triggered the 6-month clock to get to expiration?
So if the use expires or if they're not using the use anymore, so the residents were moved out and the owner wanted to pursue different options upstairs.
Okay.
And so working with them, it was determined that the residents moved out and it extended over the 6-month period.
So presumably, the last tenant moved out, construction began to reduce it, and let's just be clear, I think it was from 8 to 7.
Yes.
Right? 5 was thrown around, but I just want to make sure we're clear they're looking at 7. That's okay.
It's 8 to 7 is correct.
That's why these
Yes.
guys are on the opposite sides of the room. Okay, it's now 7. But presumably it was that the construction began 6 months ago, and they have not completed construction.
They have not started construction.
It's not started
It's a matter of,
construction.
there was a change, my understanding is the petitioner and the owner was looking to do something different
I
up there.
see.
And then people moved out, and in discussions with the ownership about timeframes and what they were looking to do,
I see.
it became apparent that people had moved out and that the use was no longer the residential use was no longer being occupied or used, and that triggered the 6-month period.
Okay. And then I think this was asked in the commissioner questions, but I think it's worth repeating. I think we have at least one other building in the area that has a similar situation, which is, I think, literally one block down, 1008, 1010 Curtis, has 18 units with no requirement for parking. Is that correct?
That's correct. So, Commissioner Tully, I do know that date, that was 1918. I did look up that building at 1008.
I read that one.
1010
Okay.
Curtis. So,
Okay.
I apologize, I didn't make the connection to the age of this building. But yes, that building is just down the block east of Curtis, built 1918, does not have any on-site parking either.
Okay. Yeah, look, my first pass on this, it just feels like this is how it's been. And that the intent is to keep it the way it was, other than obviously removing a unit. It feels a little, I'm not sure I want to be in the business of attempting to remove value in this way. So, I think we'll have some further discussion, but my gut here tells me that this is not unlike a drive-through special use expiring when it took another year to get the plans approved, or that type of thing. I think we had a parking lot over at Butterfield and Finley that they weren't sure what they were going to do there, so I think we extended some things there. It feels more like that, more transactional than it does giving any sort of special privilege. Yeah, I think that's my thoughts on it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. What else? I'd just add there's a couple of things I think I agree with everything that was said here. I'll add that one of the village's interests, we've got a lot of interests, and we tried our best to leverage each one of those in a positive way, but one of them is a variety of housing in a variety of places. This certainly adds to that as well. And then, not only is it not, adding, I think Mike's point is pretty spot on. I can't see another use that's less burdensome on whatever parking demand we have and however we define it in the downtown area. And so those both weigh on my mind as I consider this conversation as well. Jim, we're going to come back to this next week. If you got a question, add it into Dave. Not send it to Dave or Mike. Not now, later, please. So just another kind of formality about process. This process goes back and forth, and what we try and do is what you've just seen, which is a series of questions on the front end, some discussion. If you have additional questions or something comes up when you leave tonight, you think, man, I just thought about that, please send them in to us. We will try and get them all answered. We do try and do that, but we also try to keep the meeting moving. So please respect that process. Dave?
Thank you, Mayor. The next several items have to do with the remodeling and expansion of the Perillo dealerships located on Ogden Avenue, and specifically this project would result in welcoming Rolls-Royce dealership joining Lamborghini and Bentley dealership on this property. Here to provide information about the zoning-related aspects of this project, we'll welcome back Stan.
Thank you, Manager Field. Good evening, Mayor and Council again. We have a variety of entitlements here tonight and 2 zoning map amendment requests, 2 special uses, and a plan unit development for the Perillo development at 4241 Florence Avenue and 310 to 330 Ogden Avenue. The property is generally located in the northeast corner of town here. The subject property consists of 2 lots, 2 properties here. The property at the northwest corner of Ogden and Florence, which is home to 2 buildings and a surface parking lot for the development that's existing there. The east parcel on the east side of Florence Avenue is a vacant lot that's currently turf at that location. Petitioner currently has 2 buildings here shown in the gray outline. Petitioner is proposing to construct an addition onto the front of the building and then construct a service bay addition off of the east end of the building there to provide service space for the 3 dealerships that would be located in the home. And I'm not in the home, I apologize, in the building, in the commercial building, I apologize about that. The petitioner is also proposing to construct a vehicle inventory lot on the east parcel on Florence there. That lot will not be open to the public, so it's only for employees that would store cars in this location and then porter them back to the main lot there for customers to access there as well. As part of those improvements, the 2 existing curb cuts on Ogden would remain, but the curb cuts on Florence would then be aligned. The current curb cut's a little south, on the west side of Florence is a little bit south, so it would now align with the new curb cut on the east side of Florence. You can see the additions here that are proposed. The new additions, you can see in the upper picture over on the left-hand side, that's a little bump out that we were talking about, and then in the back is the large service bay on the upper right-hand side, and then on the lower right-hand side coming out towards the east on Florence. The building is primarily clad with aluminum storefront windows and then aluminum composite wall panels. As previously noted, there's multiple entitlement requests. So the first request is to rezone the residential parcel to a commercial parcel to B3, which is what we see up and down Ogden Avenue. Then the village would establish 2 special uses on the Florence Avenue property, allow for an automobile dealership on this location, and then also provide for an accessory parking lot, which is an accessory structure before a principal structure on the lot. And then we would establish a planned unit development for both sides of Florence Avenue, so it would function as one development. And then finally, we would rezone the entire site from a B3 to a B3/PUD which is what we see all of our planned unit developments zoned as throughout the community. With regard to the comprehensive plan, the site's in the corridor commercial corridor here in Ogden Avenue, talking about serving the local and regional needs. It's within the Ogden Avenue focus area. We talk about improving pedestrian connections, so there's better pedestrian connections now off of Ogden and then off of Florence to this development. Then also increasing the lot depth along Ogden Avenue. We all know our lot depths are a little shallow. And we really want to make sure we buffer the nearby residential areas. So the existing parking lot has got some good buffering, and then with the new parking lot, that would also be buffered for the residential to the north and to the east. The Plan Commission considered this petition at their April 1st meeting. They found that the zoning map rezoning standards were met, PUD standards were met, and the special use standards were met as well. I am happy to answer any questions that you may have, Mayor, and the Village Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Any questions from the audience on this? Council comments or questions? Mike?
Yeah, I got a few here. First of all, exciting stuff. I really appreciate the investment in our community, and this is a real plus for Downers Grove. Regarding the proposal, first, if I understand it right, the lot in the upper right-hand corner, I went online, it looks like it's got 2 PIN numbers. It almost looks like it's a flag lot right now. So if this weren't zoned to B3 PUD, potentially could house 2 homes, right?
Potentially, correct.
So just a point of information. Let's see. And then I have some concern about, I know this will come up in the planning, but making sure that we buffer things along that existing residential to the north, because this is obviously going to be a big change for them compared to what they're currently looking at. And with that in mind, I noticed that the fence along separating the existing parking lot from the residential area to the north doesn't look like it's in the greatest of condition, and is sitting alongside a bunch of arborvitaes, that sort of thing. And clearly, as part of this project, there'll be a fencing requirement separating this business from the residential area.
That is correct. There's a fence along those property lines, and then landscaping as well.
So I'm wondering, right now that existing vegetation that's along that line is pretty dense, and it looks to me like it provides a pretty good visual block to that empty lot. I'm wondering, is it ever appropriate to request that the existing vegetation remain along?
I think this is a question we can ask the petitioner, and I think they'd be happy to answer those questions for you. I know a lot of things that go into this as well as stormwater and moving water around the site, through the site, and so that always plays a little bit, but I'm sure the petitioner would be happy to address your landscaping questions.
Okay. That's, and then the lighting too, making sure that any lighting is facing south. I'm particularly concerned about that change in zoning and how it will affect the neighbor to the north. So.
Yes, we require a photometric plan. I believe that's been provided. That shows it's compliant with the zoning ordinance.
Good deal. All right, thank you. That's all for me for now.
Thanks, Mike. Leslie?
I basically have the same concerns. Yeah, and just ensuring that the lighting is, respectful of the residential properties around them, as well as the buffer areas. So similar concerns to the condition of the fence. I again assume we would either stick with the current arborvitaes, or if those can't survive, new arborvitaes, since those tend to give us a good density there. And then my other question was kind of what our thoughts on the stormwater plan would be. And I know that in the past we've had a couple concerns with some new developments where they haven't been able to maybe put the driveway where they wanted to because of stormwater concerns. I don't anticipate that will be an issue here, since it wasn't identified here, because it is nice to see those curb cuts lined up now on Florence. So.
Yeah, so we're confident that they can fit this way. We've done preliminary engineering review. I believe the parking lot's permeable pavers, if I remember correctly. So the petitioner can speak to that as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, just a couple questions. Would approving the PUD require them to consolidate the lots that are in the main area? It looks like those are separate lots. Or would those be consolidated through this process?
Yes, they would,
Okay.
administratively, yes.
That would become, okay, great. And then I'm wondering about the number of spaces for cars, and is this a net reduction based on the addition in how many cars they can park on the lot?
I believe the petitioner can address the specific numbers of
Okay.
parking.
Okay.
I would have to look through to see.
Yeah, and I guess I'm not often in the market for a Rolls Royce or a Bentley.
But when you are.
But when I am, I assume that there's not as many of those as you might find on a more standard car lot, where you might have, a few dozen Toyotas versus. So I am just curious about, it's comprised of 3, and just their plan for display and how that might impact how much space they may need.
I have a similar situation, so I think the petitioner would probably be best to
Okay.
answer that question about Rolls
Okay,
Royce and
very good.
Lamborghinis and,
I'm glad we're on the same
and Bentleys, yes.
But I think overall, including some of the concerns with the neighbors, this is a fantastic thing for us. And I, like Commissioner Davenport mentioned, I'm grateful for the continued and further investment in our village. I think the building looks great, and I'm looking forward to seeing more and advancement on this. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Anyone else? Martin?
You know I'd have something to say about this. Thank you. Just taking them in order. We already talked about, we haven't talked about zoning map standards, and we haven't talked about plan unit development standards. Starting with the zoning map amendment standards, which I always appreciate you putting on the screen for me, Stan, so that I don't forget about them. There's no single standard here, but the factors that we're supposed to consider, almost all of them are weigh heavily in favor of this amendment. Clearly, existing use has been exactly this for a long time. For that same reason, the property is very suitable for the zone purpose. We have a vacant lot that's not been put to economic use, and now it will be. If we can actually preclude a flag lot, I'm all for that. That alone probably would make the decision. For me, clearly there's great value to the community of this proposed use, and yes, like my fellow commissioner said, we're very grateful for the continued investment in our community and our local economy. And this is exactly consistent with our comprehensive plan, particularly the narrow lots that we have on Ogden Avenue. There's been a plan over time to, while being respectful to the residential areas, to deepen those lots to support more modern economic uses, since Ogden Avenue used to be called Plank Road for a reason. And very, very narrow. Well, that doesn't really comport with modern uses, so this is a good opportunity to pursue one of the objectives of the comprehensive plan and eliminate a flag lot. So thank you, Commissioner Davenport. So I think it meets all the criteria for the requested zoning map amendment. With respect to the plan unit development, a lot of the same issues come into play here. Some are very technical municipal code issues. But the key thing here, and some of my colleagues have already raised this, is that for a plan unit development, one of the things we're supposed to consider is whether appropriate terms and conditions have been imposed on the approval to protect the interests of the surrounding property owners and residents, existing and future residents of the plan unit development, and the general public. So I appreciate the landscaping, light, sound hasn't been mentioned, but sound is another issue. Over the years with some of the car dealerships on Ogden Avenue, there have been complaints about the public address system with ingress and egress, loading and unloading, test driving, things of that nature. I don't think we have had a lot of issues, or at least that I can recall in the short time I've been back up here. So this has been a business has been pretty respectful of the neighborhood. I didn't see a lot of complaints in here from the neighborhood, so I don't think we're dealing with that situation. However, whether it's here or with the special use, if there's an opportunity to maybe memorialize some good behavior that's already happening in terms of test driving or ingress and loading and things like that. And I'm not being very specific because I haven't thought it through enough yet. There might be an opportunity to do so. I'm not suggesting that there's been any issues with this petitioner, but with the understanding that this is a land use change and there could be future owners that we might want to keep in mind. Just a thought, something to think about. Don't have to make any decisions here today, but otherwise I think the criteria for the PUD establishment have been met. And then last, back to special use, same kind of thing. We're allowed to put conditions on special uses. That's probably the primary driver, no pun intended, for any of those restrictions here. But again, it clearly meets every criteria. This is expressly authorized for the district it's in. In fact, it's designated for that use. Certainly necessarily desirable for the overall economic welfare of the community. It's one of those things that helps keep our property taxes down, ladies and gentlemen. And that the proposed use, for the reasons mentioned, will not be injurious to the neighborhood. Doesn't sound like it from the public comment or from the attempts that have already been made proactively to minimize impact upon the neighborhood and enhance things like green space and pedestrian access, which is another goal of the Ogden Avenue plan and the comprehensive plan. So to the extent that there's anything else that we want to bake in there that would memorialize already great respectful behavior, that would be the only thing I would add as a potential consideration. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Greg?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to add too much to the what I think has been a sort of an avalanche of good comments, but I am interested in the answers and to some of the questions that have been asked. But I think what we've got here is what's been a fantastic corporate citizen of Downers Grove, looking to expand, and I think it's something that's been in the works for a little while now, and it's a lot of fun to see it come to fruition. This is a big win for Downers. The fact that things have gone so well with this dealership to date, I think underscores exactly what we can expect moving forward. The impact on the neighborhood is going to be minimal. I don't think it could be, excuse me, any lower impact than just putting a parking lot on that particular lot on Florence. The petitioner's already been responsive to requests for photometric changes and things like that. So I think we're in a great spot here. Look forward to voting in favor of this, and the standards are very easily met. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? You sparked? All right, move on.
Mayor, if it's appropriate, there were a couple questions that were asked here tonight that the petitioner is in the best position to answer. I believe design professionals for the petitioner are here, and so maybe to save a little staff write-up time, if they're up for it, maybe they could actually walk through the questions and answers regarding perimeter landscaping, lighting, parking counts, and, if appropriate, stormwater management.
That'd be great. Welcome.
Good evening.
Well, good evening. Sam DiStefano, I represent the Perillo Auto Group. This is Ben West. He represents Axios Architects. He is the lead architect on this project. Good evening.
Sam, could you walk us through just a couple of those answers to maybe start with the perimeter landscaping and how that's going to work?
Sure. With respect to the Florence Avenue parking lot, this will be a secured lot. It is a fenced lot. There is extreme attention going to be given to the front facade of this parcel with planting. So there's going to be heavy planting in respect to not having it look like a commercial piece, but rather to have it look like a residential piece. There'll be extreme planting to respect the neighbor to the north, and I think we have a 17 or 20 foot setback on our property that we've given up for what is going on to the east side of that property where there's some townhomes. And then to the south side, again, there'll be a lot of planting. So we don't want to we want to give the appearance that this is a residential property that is secure. It will have lighting on it, on the property. The lighting will work along with the security system that we have, and it's all done by motion. If someone comes too close to the fence or touches the fence, cameras and lighting will be activated. As far as the Ogden Avenue parcel, we have to address that north side perimeter. It looks like it's overgrown and it needs to be addressed. The entire parcel is being addressed, and we will most definitely make sure that the property looks and meets the cora of what the cars are. That's where our focus is, to bring it all together. We did a photometrics. The lighting is very, very important. I mean, I don't think White Sox Park has as many lights as we have over there. It's really abusive. And it was just an oversight. But going through this 10-month ordeal with trying to obtain this PUD, I most definitely recognize that. I brought it to ownership. Ownership immediately told me, correct it and make sure that it's done right. So, and we have done that. We will do that. We have that in works. Let's say that it will be done.
Any other questions pop up?
In terms of the number of cars or the
Sure.
spotlight, yeah.
So, when you said that, that brought a smile to my face. Believe it or not, in this facility here, we will probably possess 30 to 40 Bentleys on site. As far as Rolls Royces are concerned, at least just right under 2 dozen, somewhere 15 or 16 cars will be on site. They will be in that secured lot. So the lot is going to be developed, and then we just kind of wanted to just go away.
Sure.
And then, of course, all the activity will be in the Ogden Avenue parcel.
All right. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Our pleasure. We look forward to continuing.
That saved us a write-up on all those issues, so thank you, Sam, for that. The next item actually is related to this very site. This property, most of it is located in the Ogden Avenue Tax Increment Financing District. And several months ago, this council talked about how we wanted to close out that Ogden TIF district during this extended period by making sure that we facilitate redevelopments that generate sales tax, improve the look and function of this commercial corridor. And clearly what we've heard tonight that is happening here. Item F is the redevelopment agreement between the village and Gold Coast Exotic Imports. In a nutshell, what it says is if the developer delivers everything that they showed us here tonight according to a specified schedule and brings us that Rolls-Royce expanded dealership, then the village will reimburse the developer owner for TIF-eligible expenses up to $2.5 million. This proposed redevelopment agreement was reviewed and recommended approval by the Economic Development Corporation Executive Board. We're happy to answer any questions, and yes, it has the clause in there that the developer owner has to comply with all village codes and ordinances and ties to the special use and PUD approvals. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Dave. Any questions or comments from the audience? Question or comments from council? Martin?
Well, now I will save my comments, nice doing business with you. I appreciate the continued reinvestment in the community. This is exactly what the tax increment financing district at Ogden Avenue was set up to do, is to support these kind of economic wins for both private business and the village of Downers Grove. So we appreciate the opportunity to do business with you. Thank you for your continued investment in our community. Everyone benefits from this. This is exactly the kind of arrangement that we've done very successfully in the past. Where we contribute something but get a lot more in return, and the business benefits, we benefit, and the entire community benefits. So this is really a great win for everyone. Thank you to staff for negotiating it, and we look forward to continuing to do business with you very successfully for many years. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? All right. Move on.
Thank you. The last two items are actually awards of contract for capital improvement projects, and both Mr. Moody and Mr. Vasco from our Public Works and Engineering divisions weren't able to make it tonight, so I'll be doing the presentations here tonight. They did do a great job in preparing me for this. So this first one is Blodgett Avenue drainage improvements. This project is located on Blodgett between Randall and Summit. And upon completion of this project, it will address the ponding that occurs during large storm events and icing that occurs in winter. It's really stemming from an undersized existing storm sewer. This will be a new storm sewer construction. This project was bid in April, and we're recommending a contract award to the low bidder of Martam in just an amount just over $1.54 million, and that includes a 5% contingency. And you can see that the construction of this project is planned to take place between May and October of this year. Going into a little more detail, as I mentioned, this project consists of new storm sewer with additional inlets. And we did bundle projects here. We often talk about bundling projects to save money and lessen the impact on the neighborhood. This project will also include water service replacements, including lead service line replacements, sidewalk improvements, and roadway patching and resurfacing as we button up this project. I'll also present the last item on tonight's first reading agenda and take questions jointly from the council. This is the Indianapolis Street reconstruction and the 2024 water main improvement projects. The first is the project located at Indianapolis between Fairview and Cumner, and the second project will be Brookbank between Gilbert and Turvey. Both of those projects have water mains that will be replaced. Starting with the Indianapolis project, it was bid in April, and we're recommending a contract award to the low responsive bidder, H. Linden & Sons, in the amount of about $1.87 million, including a 5% contingency, and again, the same construction schedule. Some more detail on these projects. The Indianapolis project includes new storm sewer and additional inlets, a V gutter on the south side, and curb on the north side. Both of those improvements are necessary to address grading and stormwater management drainage issues. Sidewalk improvements and a complete roadway reconstruction on Indianapolis. Talking about bundling projects, it's a big bang for the buck. And then on the Brookbank water main improvements, this also includes, in addition to the water main improvements, sidewalk removal and emplacement, roadway patching, and resurfacing. So I don't know if I did that justice to David and Scott, but that's a brief overview, and frankly, we're really proud about how we're strategically bundling those projects to get the most for our money and reduce the impact to the adjacent neighbors. Happy to answer any questions the council may have on those contracts.
Leslie?
I just have a quick question. Is there a reason why we're doing curb on the north side of Indianapolis and then the V gutter on the south side? Is there like a specific reason why?
Yes, and thank goodness Mr. Vasco prepped me for this question as well. There's installation of curb on the north side of the street and a V gutter on the south side of the street to help facilitate drainage along the block. The reason for the curb on the north side was due to a severe slope in the North Parkway and to eliminate rock that is in the parkway presently at that location. And the V gutter on the south side is similar to what was installed in other projects, including on Sherwood last year between Chicago and Grant. That V gutter is something we've been adding just to make sure that the stormwater system functions properly. So did anticipate that question, and so Mr. Vasco hooking me up there.
I'm glad I'm predictable.
Mike?
So hopefully this is something you can...
Uh-oh, there's not much more on my script.
5% contingencies, is that typical for this sort of project?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, just gives us a little bit of flexibility at the staff level to deal with unforeseen circumstances should they arise.
Yeah, my concern is whether or not that's enough, so.
Traditionally, it's been the right amount,
That's what we've been
yes.
doing, that's what's working. Question asked and answered, thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, I had a question about gravel to asphalt ratio, but I'll go easy on you. Does this remove the culvers on Indianapolis? Will this, that are there?
We'll find out.
Okay.
We'll find out.
Because I know that there are, on both sides, they're relatively deep culvers, and I wonder if part of this work is to get rid of those.
We'll double check. I don't want to offer an answer until we're sure.
Those are ankle twisters for Lester Elementary School kids, so I'm asking on behalf of my young...
I think so, but we just want to double check before we answer that question.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience or comments from the audience? Okay, one more pass at the dais. Mike?
I just wanted to say that it appears that the Commissioner Gilmartin gets the Stump the Manager award for the
Yes,
evening.
got it.
I refrained from
Leslie and I
that.
took a swing.
Let the record show I refrained from putting him on the spot.
Tonight is still young.
Hey, don't listen to these guys, Fieldman. You could still be a public works director.
Oh, no, that is not true. But I do see an opportunity to end the first reading here, so I'll
Good
do
segue.
that.
Look at that.
That is our first reading there.
That was segue.
Well, you're not off the hook. You got a manager's report?
Oh, I do not have a manager's
Oh, you are
report
off the
tonight.
hook.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a report, only 6 items tonight. An ordinance authorizing a special use for 5133 Main Street to permit a multifamily unit on the second floor and a parking variation. An ordinance rezoning certain property at 4241 Florence Avenue. An ordinance authorizing a special use to permit an automobile dealership and to construct an accessory structure before the principal structure is established at 4241 Florence Avenue. An ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the Village of Downers Grove to designate the property at 3110 through 3330 Ogden Avenue and 4241 Florence Avenue as Plan Unit Development Number 68. An ordinance rezoning certain property located at 310 330 Ogden Avenue and 4241 Florence as Planned Unit Development 5068. And finally, an ordinance approving the redevelopment agreement between the Village of Downers Grove and Gold Coast Exotic Imports. All of these items will be on next week's active agenda. Thank you, Mayor. That is all I have.
Thank you, Enza. Mayor's report tonight. I often don't have a report, but I've got just a few comments just about the meeting in general and some and a little bit of history to try and connect a few dots. We heard some people tonight that were upset about decisions being made relative to downtown parking. We heard some decisions that people were questioning relative to outdoor dining. And there's an ongoing question about another special use on a residential DT parcel in town that also has some folks upset. What I just want to connect is a couple of things. First of all, I'll say it now and I'll probably say it again at the end. Listening and agreement are not the same. I shouldn't have to say that. But listening and agreement are not the same. It is entirely possible that we listen to each other and don't vote unanimously. Has that ever happened? Anybody remember the last meeting? Listening and agreement. I'm certain that this group is listening to not only each other, but everybody in the audience. And every email that comes in is getting read. That does not mean that we always agree with those. A little broader context. We also do a lot of intentional, deliberate listening and collecting of information from the public, the businesses that represent us, or that we represent as well. So, some history. 2017 comprehensive report, comprehensive plan, was an update of a 2011 comprehensive plan. We're in the process of that now. I'll come back to that. Some things in that 2017 plan, which were not just developed by the 7 people sitting up here. They were developed over a course of about 2 years with a ton of public input, just like we're doing in Guiding DG, hopefully a little more with Guiding DG. But things you'll find in that plan: increased density downtown, increase opportunities for outdoor dining downtown. So then we start to try and work with that. So as we look at opportunities, we do things like conduct parking studies that Greg referenced. Parking studies which take data, talk to stakeholders, include live observations over multiple opportunities to make those observations. Then we take that information and we work with it, and we still continue to take information and take opinion and take suggestions from the public. But none of these are done in some sort of a vacuum. The questions along, that relate to zoning right now are the function of a 2017 comprehensive plan and a 2017 rezoning of, 100 and some parcels in the downtown. That was done over about a 2-year period. I think 3 of us up here were part of that. You can't rezone 100 plus parcels over 2 years and not have a heck of a lot of public input. There was. And it was mixed. Admittedly, it was mixed. But it was a lot of public input that got us to the point where that parcel is what it is. So let's fast forward to it's a done deal. How many times have we heard that? It doesn't matter if it's $1 million or it's your first home coming out of the city or you're trying to expand your Rolls-Royce dealership. It doesn't make any difference. If you're going to make an investment, you are likely going to start by digging into all these documents I just referred to. Traffic studies, parking studies, comprehensive plans, existing zoning ordinances, existing building codes, future land use maps, all documents that are developed as a community over a long period of time with a lot of input before you make a decision to proceed. You're probably going to hire an attorney and a realtor. You might even hire an engineer and an architect. So by the time it gets to us, not only has it had a lot of work done by our staff and the petitioner, but it started down a path that some group of professionals, architects, engineers, attorneys, and realtors, believed was likely an achievable path. Process that for a minute. It didn't just come out of thin air. It didn't come because somebody up here was getting rich on the backside of some deal. That's nonsense. It came as a function of a series of planning documents that have been happening literally for decades in Downers Grove, with not only these 7, not only this mayor. It goes back way longer than that, and it will continue. So that's the last point. The last point after my little mini rant, because it's not a lot of fun getting accused of things. But the last point is we are back in this process. It was referred to earlier, guiding DG is an ongoing process. That is a revisiting of our comprehensive plan and a couple other subjects that we are hoping we get a ton of input. We really are. So if you don't like what you see right now, tell us what you think would make sense, and add to that input. It's the opportunity, because what's going to happen in 26 and 27 and the next mayor and the next council is they're going to do the exact same this one and the last 10 have done. They're going to rely on those planning documents a lot. So now we're revisiting those. We're taking new input and considering updates and changes to those planning documents. So please, guiding DG, jump in, be a part of it. And lastly, remember that listening is not the same as agreeing. I have to get that out there, because it is too often that we hear you're not listening. We're listening. We are listening. Everyone up here is listening to each other and to the audience. All right, rant over from the mayor. Council member reports. This is an opportunity for council members to rant a little bit, hopefully not too much, but also more importantly to report out on other events going on in town, other groups that they are working with that they think should be highlighted and our information broadcasted. So we'll start with Mike.
Yeah, I'll just use this privilege to wish my mom and all the moms in my life a very happy Mother's Day, and I hope the same for all of yours. So that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Danny.
I have no report, Mayor. Thank you.
Leslie.
I do have a little bit. First, thank you to everyone who came out for the Grove Foundation's Passport to Dining. It was a great success, despite the rain. It was also wonderful to see the community at Country in the Park this Saturday, and I'm really sorry that we ran out of ice cream so quickly. It was a beautiful day, and we went through 2 churns and a bunch of cups, and we still ran out a half an hour early, so sorry about that. I also want to thank the mayor for the Mental Health Awareness Month proclamation, which seems to be even more important each year I'm up here. One of my goals as a local leader is to reduce stigma around mental health, and I've said before up here, we don't get to choose our trauma. The only choice, the only control we have is how to cope and respond in difficult situations. And I have this conversation frequently with my 8-year-old. It also feels incredibly timely as the hostility and attacks continue to be lodged against the library, their supporters, and many of us community leaders. And I would really love to ask those who sit on boards and commissions who have contributed to some of this negative behavior if you would like to see it happen on your board, whether it be threatening to fight people from the podium or hosting a podcast where the opening segment involves gunshots and attacks on the community and calling community members an enemy. It just exacerbates the problem. Because this level of rhetoric goes beyond feeling backed into a corner or a difference of an opinion. Given the attacks hurled at me personally the last couple of weeks, I can understand feeling isolated. But what I cannot understand is the desire to make others hurt simply because you're not happy with the outcome of a process. And as a boss once told me, happy people don't go on the attack. In fact, I actually considered reading some of the vile commentary, mean tweet style, or playing a profanity-laden voicemail I received, which all of my colleagues are aware of, but no one else received. But that won't help. It's not going to solve the problem. And I would like to thank Commissioners Davenport, Glover, Jose, and Gilmartin for reaching out with empathy and kindness to me personally throughout these attacks. Instead, my ask up here is that for Mental Health Awareness Month, that we all take stock of our own emotional well-being and ask ourselves if we're truly being the best we can be and leading by example. And if not, please take advantage of the many resources available in the community to get yourself there. I'm lucky that my employer provides Headspace, a mindfulness app, for free. It's great when you're having a stressful evening. And I have a wonderful therapist to help me work out both short-term stressors and longer-term grief and trauma. This week is a very difficult one for me personally, and I can admit that my own grief can make me more short-tempered than I usually am. But those of us who are working on our best selves can acknowledge when we make those mistakes to our loved ones and those around us, apologize, and use the resources that we have to do better next time. Because while we certainly all carry the weight of our own experiences, we as adults need to provide a positive example of self-care and empathy towards others. So if you're unsure of how to access mental health resources, please reach out to our social worker, Heather Lippy, for referrals. You can also text or call 988. We are lucky to have these resources in our community. And given the audible disdain for a reminder of the fact that our LGBTQ+ youth community is struggling at the last meeting, I thought it was important to also highlight this issue again. Because we can either use the power and influence we have up here to make life better for those who feel marginalized, or we can make the choice to ignore it and perpetuate the issue. So I'm going to use my time to share some specifics from the Trevor Project. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people aged 10 to 14, and the third leading cause of death among 15 to 20-year-olds, CDC 2022 data. LGBTQ+ youth are significantly increased risk. In fact, they're more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide than their peers. The Trevor Project estimates that more than 1.8 million LGBTQ youth seriously consider suicide every year in the US, and that means 1 suicide attempt every 45 seconds. The Trevor Project's 2023 National Survey on LGBTQ Youth Mental Health found that 41% of LGBTQ youth seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year, including more than half of transgender and non-binary youth. Our community is not immune to these sobering statistics. My ask is that you listen to these youth, you truly see and hear them, and you model an atmosphere of belonging for the community. Because some of our youth still face rampant bullying and slurs in school and in the community. So let's be the change we want to see and support our community's collective mental well-being. Also, stay tuned for a lot of great activities around Pride next month, including a teen kickoff event at the library that we should all support, and the annual Pride event hosted by EQDG on June 8th at Fishel Park. Finally, I do want to also offer a happy Mother's Day for all of the mothers out there, and I am also holding space for all of those who may be grieving this time of year. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Martin.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate your powerful words, Commissioner. You spoke of resources. One terrific resource that we have in our community is Hope's Front Door. Hope's Front Door is located right here in downtown Downers Grove and runs a very wonderful anti-poverty program that helps over 73,000 DuPage County residents who live below the poverty line, and frankly does an awful lot with very little. So how can you help? Hope's Front Door is having their annual Hands of Hope Luncheon fundraiser a week from today. That would, of course, be, for those who are asking, Tuesday, May 14th from 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's being held at the Seven Bridges Golf Club. Unfortunately, the invitations got out a little late this year due to certain government agency not realizing where they needed to go. But that's another story. So if you are interested in supporting and making a difference in your own community, right here in your back door, not some far-flung place, but literally your neighbors, then consider supporting Hope's Front Door and maybe attending the event. As mentioned, it's a week from today. More information can be found at hopesfrontdoor.org. I am on the board of Hope's Front Door, full disclosure, have been proudly for many, many years, and will be hosting and sponsoring a table once again. So if any of my colleagues would like to attend, just let me know. You're more than happy to be my guests. And if anyone else is interested in supporting the organization, just let me know. It's truly a remarkable organization right here in Downers Grove that does a tremendous lot of good with very little resources. Number 2, I apparently got the memo about Mental Health Month because I did wear my green tie and green shirt. And that is a great segue into, thank you as well for the proclamation, but also another one of my favorite organizations, which is NAMI DuPage. Many of you know that NAMI DuPage is also a not-for-profit 501c3 organization that's an affiliate of the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I may be saying a little bit more than I should, but NAMI serves all of DuPage County. They are based in Wheaton, which obviously is far away from here. But there may be an opportunity for this village council and this community to support an expansion of NAMI DuPage's services in our community. letting a little bit of a cat out of the bag, but I hope when that opportunity arises that everybody in this room, everyone listening, and particularly my colleagues, will support the effort to extend their services to right here in Downers Grove. Given the passion about which we all spoke in support of addressing mental illness, I think it would be a tremendous thing. I think it would be awesome for Downers Grove, of all the different communities in DuPage County, for this to be an opportunity for. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. I think it's very appropriate to say that, and hopefully the executive director doesn't yell at me for having said that, but maybe it'll be viewed as a positive thing. Also, for those that want to spend more time with the Village Council, because clearly you're still here and you can't get enough of us, you can come visit us on Saturday. Yes, we're back outdoors. Coffee with the Council is this Saturday, May 11th, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., part of the downtown Downers Grove Market. Come on by, share your views. If I don't see you, Janet, I'll be very disappointed. Thank you very much. And then the last thing, of course, I'll join the rest of my colleagues in wishing mothers everywhere in our community a very happy Mother's Day, but particularly to Commissioner Sadowski-Fugate. Happy Mother's Day. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you. Chris?
No report, Mayor, thank you.
Greg?
No report, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, that ends our normal part of our meeting. We are going to, I believe, go into closed session tonight. We've got some work to do on the board and commission front. We will not be coming back out here after this closed session, so this is likely the end of the meeting for the audience. Greg?
Mayor, I move to convene into closed session pursuant to Section 2C1 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act to consider the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body or legal counsel for the public body. I further move to convene into closed session pursuant to Section 2C3 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act to consider the selection of a person to fill a public office as defined in this act, including a vacancy in a public office, when the public body is given power to appoint under law or ordinance, or the discipline, performance, or removal of the occupant of a public office, when the public body is given power to remove the occupant under law or ordinance.
Second.
There's got to be a joke in there somewhere, but I probably shouldn't say something about an attorney reading that whole thing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are going to move to executive session. Thank you all for joining us this evening.